Dude.
This is another episode, I think, of Class in Session, where I am sometimes the professor, but always the student. And again, we have Dr. Sarita Stevens from Central Indiana, who's the superintendent in Central Indiana,
A deputy.
and Mr. Grimes. What?
I'm
What
a
did I say
deputy.
wrong? I
A
messed up
deputy.
already.
No, no, you didn't. I just deputy. I just want to clarify that.
Oh, same thing. Same thing. You're a superintendent in my heart. we, have, we have Mr. Grimes, who is an educator in the state of Texas. And today we are going over what cognitive learning skills or models today, Dr. Stevens.
So the topic, so we're always integrating human development, the Eric Erickson's model of human development with other educational theories. And today's educational theory is Jean Piaget, cognitive development, and Bloom's taxonomy, and on how learning, how you reach your goal through learning. Piaget is the actual cognitive development, and there are stages in cognitive development.
I felt so hard. I was looking at Jordan Peterson,
Mhm.
and he is a clinical psychotherapist.
Okay.
And he was citing Jean Piaget. And
Mhm.
I'm going, where have I heard that? Like, that in no way has anything to do with history. So I'm like, but I know what he's talking about. I felt like I was actually fitting into the conversation. And that's he was actually citing that particular research. Now, is there a particular reason that you have these models working together? Is it a primary model and the other ones kind of feed off of it, or they're
So
interchangeable?
they're just they're independent models. So Jean Piaget and Jean Rousseau like actually studied cognitive development in humans. And so and Jean Piaget emerged as the top philosopher in the study of brain development or learning development. This is actually learning development. Um, and its
Just,
purpose
just
is
to break it down, is cognitive does cognitive mean when you say cognitive development? Does that just mean brain development, or is there a more?
it's intellectual development. So
Okay, all right. Just making sure that everybody who heard it would understand exactly what we're talking
yes, it's intellectual development, and he's defined it in four distinct stages. That's widely accepted in educational research.
about. And a lot of this is psychological.
No,
No.
so the psychological development is separate from cognitive development, but psychological development can affect the cognitive development
Yes. So
because
they kind of, it's like a Venn diagram a little bit, like they overlap at a point.
absolutely, because there's yeah, because depending on your psychological health and your social psychological environment, it does have an impact on the way your brain develops.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. So what are we getting into today?
So we probably should define what the stages are in Piaget, like the actual stages.
Now,
And
does his model have a name like
yes, it's
the
stages
other
of
guy?
cognitive development. It's
Oh,
stages.
it's just stages. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And let me see if I can share this. And that way everyone can see it. And I may not be advanced enough to do that. So, and it appears that I'm not. So, I'll go
No,
over what
just go. All right, we're gonna have our all of this is about learning. So now we're about to learn tech. Um, go to there. It should be a little box at the bottom with the arrow pointing up.
uh-huh.
and you click that, and then you'll see your other screens, and you just click the screen that you want to share. But you go to that share box with the arrow pointing up, and that's how you share screen.
Oh, okay.
So now we have done a tutorial on sharing your screen in Zoom.
Well, as it turns out, I would have to change my settings. So I would have to dive a little deeper. I just have to,
Okay.
I would have
All
to
right.
changing my settings. And yeah, so I'm gonna,
I mean, just because I probably can't understand it anyway, just explain it to me.
okay. Here, I'm gonna try one more thing, and if that doesn't work, then okay, so I'm not gonna worry about it. So the first stage is the always, even when we described Eric Erickson, you always start with the one of the most important developmental stages is from birth to about 18 months or 2 years.
2 years.
The same in Piaget because generally philosophers before they come up with their philosophy, they study other philosophers. And so
Yeah,
it
that's
made
that's every.
yeah, it made sense for him to use some of those same timelines. So,
Mhm.
sensor motor is age 0 to 2. And again, that's in the psychological, in Eric Erickson, that is a time where you have to trust adults. And
Mhm.
so, and it's also the time where you learn if you're in a stable environment. So, sensor, sensory motor stage is focusing on exploring the world. That's when the baby is looking around, reacting to the reaction of adults. They can tell from the reaction of adults whether or not they're loved and whether or not, the people around them have their best interests at heart. And because they have studies of neglected babies that, and orphans and no one talked to them and they became very aloof and kind of develop this between being insecure and just being protective of themselves because of
Mhm.
the atmosphere of the adults. And Mr. Grimes, feel free to jump in.
And I was about to say, I think the environment plays a significant role in how that happens.
Yes.
By parents being the first teachers, they lay the foundational blocks for uh, when the social aspect kicks in. When they have to leave and go to pre-K, right, and go to pre-KK, and so what we do at the house is highly important, especially in that particular age range of, I would say, even from 0 to 3, because they function on such a low vibration of understanding, and they consume, oh my gosh, they consume quite a bit during that particular time. But that trust and respect, not trust and respect, but that trust and reliance on the family structure is highly important in terms of their development. It's cognitively and psychologically. So and I tell people all the time, I can still remember some things at 2 and 3 because they were so significant that continues to stay with me. And this is very vivid. It's,
Mm-hmm.
so when somebody says, well, you remember, Doc, when the concept was that kids come to us like a blank slate, like they know nothing, right? They don't know much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that concept is always being debunked. And kids come to us at 2 and 3 knowing a whole lot more than we ever
Well,
anticipated.
and you know what? The age of information is going to make that even more complex
Yes,
because
yes,
as they have those devices in their hands and they're
yes,
exposed to more concepts and visual and imagery that they can connect with, because generally 0 to 2 is imagery. It's what
yes,
see and what, and so we have to be very, very parents, we all have these cell phones, we all have these devices that we can place in these children's hands. Please make sure that you put on the filters, the
yes,
adult filters for children, because they do have algorithms that will teach your children very, very well. And they also have algorithms that will teach your children way too much at that developmental stage. And
way too.
and they end up with confusing signals. because they are not mature enough to disaggregate and categorize the imagery or the
Mhm.
information that they're being fed. So, and I'm not going to get back into those,
Keep it
but
going.
because we'll talk about that all day. So that's the sensory motor stage, 0 to 2, according to Jean Piaget, and that's
And it's trust in both. Eric Erickson and Piaget, both 0 to 2 is trust.
yes, they would that would still be in the trust range where
I'm just making sure I'm following.
But they're also very touchy feely, fallible. They like to explore using their hands, the visualization, the imagery, because again, it's sensory motor, right? So
right.
you understand, our parietal lobe is really beginning to develop during that time. And stop
Right.
that.
What?
And
Stop.
saying that's why, at that time you have to
Yeah.
like put things
Yes.
up
Yeah,
because
you do.
they're exploring them with
Yeah.
sense
Yeah.
tasting and touching and they learn real fast. I mean
And it's amazing that the limbic system is really more developed than the prefrontal lobe. So it's constantly
Okay,
emotional,
okay, okay.
sensory, touching.
Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it,
Yes, sir.
hold it, hold it. I don't have a master's degree or a doctorate. You're talking about a lymphatic something, and then you
The
use the
limbic system, bro.
parietal something. Back it up.
Okay. Okay. So the limbic system is where you have your fight or flight responses, your rest and digest responses.
All right.
It's your emotional side that really drives how you're feeling, how you're doing that day. So kids at this age are highly I mean, it's the I need to be fed. It's the I need the attention. It's
the basic
the
needs.
basic needs are, or the primitive brain section also.
And that's lymphatic.
No, that's limbic.
Limpic. Okay,
Limbic.
limpic is your
Limbic
fight or
system.
flight, your basic need.
That's your
Now,
emotional. That's the emotional side.
okay,
That's like where your amygdala and all that stuff is located. Your
So, okay,
hippocampus.
so you know what? There's going to be an opportunity for us to
I
talk
know. Okay, let's
that
go.
and for us to talk about ACEs because
Yes,
we're really honestly talking about the cognitive developmental
development part.
stages right now. Those are the things that happen in the cognitive. So, okay, so I just want to get through the
Mhm.
stages, so
okay.
people understand that the sensory motor stage is 0 to about 2. And that's when, like Mr. Grimes said, that's when they're exploring, testing, watching, hearing, tasting. That's how they learn that the world is real. They're also picking up some concepts that they know are there and they don't have to see it all the time, but they know it's there. And Mr. Grimes also alluded to that. The second stage is a preoccupational stage, and that's that preschool and early learning. We call them the littles. And that is a time where their brain is picking up information so fast and the most information really in their lifetime because their brain is palatable at that age. So again, when you have kids that are exposed to these devices, put the adult controls on those devices. Make sure that
This is 3, 4, and 5.
that right, preoccupational stage. This is a stage where you begin to think about objects that are not in front of you. So this is a stage where you start to think about concepts and the things that you learned from 0 to 2. Now it doesn't have to be in front of you for your brain to know that it's there. So in this
Wow.
it's 2 to 7,
What?
you're starting
7.
2 to 7, and we call us educators call them the littles because they're from
7 is little.
second grade. Yes, because
Oh,
at 7 you are not able to decipher all rights and wrongs. You don't have a level of consciousness where you can determine what right and wrong, like clearly
okay.
determine. You're still asking questions about what's right and what's wrong. And well, for example, a child can look at like a glass of water and know, okay, so that that bottle is half full, because they know imagery and they know how to kind of measure or they know how to put words to things. I'm trying to give a simple concept that brain is doing. That's also children in that age will learn multiple languages really, really easy
Mhm.
because they know how their brain is assigning information very, very fast and is open to signing and assigning information. And they're also learning from cues what's right and wrong. So they're learning, and so at stage three is the concrete operational stage. And that is a stage where you know right from wrong now. You're starting to know that just from your experiences, from the cues that the adults are giving you, from events that occur and when you're corrected. So, in this stage you start putting actions to your thought processes. You're starting to perform, and you can imply, like you can that's when metacognition starts to kick in. So you can associate this with that with this, and you can put together a full concept between seven.
Meta metacognition.
Right, where you know how to manage multiple senses. You know how
Ooh.
to, because your brain is really, really starting to develop at that time. That is
So
why.
you're putting together all the things you've learned to
Mhm.
make idea activities.
You're
Metacognition. Right?
you're starting to organize thoughts so that you can,
Ah,
which means that you are starting to develop logic, like
Or
can think logically. Go ahead, Mr. Granson.
or it's what I call that thinking about thinking stage. So
Yeah.
you dig deeper
think
in the
about
thought.
thinking.
Yeah, you're thinking about what you're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it allows them to move past that conservation piece that she was referring to a while ago, and it's able to. I know what it is, although it's not in front of me, but I also can
Mm-hmm.
put it somewhere else to where it's applicable, right? So I may be thinking about one concept, but I can also transfer that concept to something else I've already learned.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah,
And this is
this is
the third
the
level
concrete
of Piaget.
operational stage. Now, let me tell you what is happening in that stage across the country. And it really is, we're seeing that it's across social economical lines, but it's mostly affecting the poor, which are the children that are lower on that on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because they just don't have a lot, right? And so they don't get to go to preschool. They don't get to, we are seeing a deficit in reading
Mm-hmm.
because that is the age where you start to read to learn.
Mm-hmm.
See, at the preoccupational stage, you're learning to read. So you're learning to,
Mm-hmm.
right, which is very important. And people from my era remember see Jane run, Dick fell, Jane fell, Spot hit Jane. That we learn really from rote memory. But the way that we're teaching kids to read now, we're teaching the science of reading, where you have it's phonetic, the portion that you comprehension, fluency, we're teaching a more complex way to read. You're not getting that primer where you're learning all of your sight words. And although, parents still teach sight words, it's always good to do because it can get a reader. So that's the stage of cognitive development that we need to do something different in. And with the age of technology, I mean, it provides all of the opportunities to do that. You know, I now
Why are they
this is me because I'm old school. We had
okay?
books. We had something tangible in.
Angela. Mm-hmm.
Right.
We had those primers, and they were little thin books, so you had the confidence. Well, now they have books, technology books. They're learning with different instruments, and information is being fed to them in a different cadence. Like we used to have to sit and read. And remember summer reading, yeah, hey, that's where I learned Flowers in the Attic and Rebecca's Sunnybrook Farm, all of those, summer reading materials. So we really have to do a combination of of both. We got to get back to the old-fashioned book in hand and sticker and prize when you finish.
Yeah.
You
And,
know,
and Doc, I'm
So,
glad you
so
mentioned that, Doc. See, I think I try to get my fellow colleagues to understand that first of all, reading is a function, study is a process. And when you link those two together, then you get a deeper form of education and learning. I miss the writing aspect so much because writing helps you to be able to decode certain aspects of learning that you wouldn't be able to do so on a computer. Because the function of writing helps us to decode things in our brains
I'm glad
that
you
we
brought that up.
misunderstand, or we don't always get a grasp. So when it comes down to high order thinking, it's difficult for them to do that because they haven't had an in-depth mixture of both the reading and the writing functions.
So,
what is causing the drop off in reading?
well, I mean, well, really reading endurance, like when you're fed little nuggets of information through social media constantly, you develop that practice, and so it becomes difficult to sit down and read a whole chapter or read, even college students now are getting chat gpt to summarize the chapter, or summarize
Mhm.
the concept, so that you can kind of just make your way through it as opposed to reading, because reading sends cues to your brain that initiates new thought processes or new things. You know, I just recently looked at Genius with Einstein, and literally, he took old concepts and he talked to like-minded people, and eventually they studied and read until they collectively came up with new concepts. You know, so
Mhm.
so genius will come out of that. Innovation will come out of that. How where we are now, we're behind.
Mm-hmm.
We have too many children that the law is going to make us hold them in third grade because they have to learn how to read to move on to the fourth grade. And everybody's heard the formula that they're using to develop the prison systems, especially because prisons now have become for-profit entities. So one of the indicators is the student that doesn't learn how to read, because that tells you what the graduation rate is going to be, which tells you what's going to be associated with crime. And I want to just remind people that, again, the concrete operational stage, age 7 to 11, that is when we need to develop strong reading skills up to that point, because after that they're reading to learn at that stage. They're reading to learn. And so the stage 4, which is a formal occupational stage, now you need to know how to read so that you could study and you can scaffold information. We talked about the blank schemata, that a child is born with a blank slate. The schemata is designed to stack information on top of each other, and a lot of that information is associated with each other. Some are separate concepts, but some is association. And that's again how the metacognitive portion of your brain is strengthened. There are some people that are very analytical um, with math. There's some people that's very analytical with literature. And now you have people that are very analytical with these apps and computer systems, AI, that's supposed to make our lives easier. So kids are going to be competing different. So in the former occupational stage, which is the final stage, and remember, Piaget focused on child cognitive development. So we are going, generally that's the final stage is from 12 to 15, because after that you're starting your formal learning, where you learn what you do best or what you want to do in life, and you specifically study that. And so
So what happens at 12 to 15?
It's the formal occupational stage, and that's when you start forming ideas and hypotheses and having wondering questions, and trying to organize the things that you've learned and research what you think you need to, prove your hypothesis. So at that point, your critical thinking skills should be much higher. which is why we cannot sleep on stage 3 and giving kids strong reading skills.
Okay. If this has been a deficit and you're in a unique place to notice this, if this is a cultural, not even socioeconomic, this is now a cultural dynamic that people are behind in reading and lack reading stamina. I'm assuming you're noticing this in the students broadly.
Yeah,
Am I right?
yeah, I'll let Mr. Grimes talk about his experiences with it.
So I'm glad
Are
you
you
mentioned that.
noticing it in the teachers?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Are you noticing it in the teachers?
Noticing
Because
in terms of how they teach or they themselves.
no, no, Dr. Stevens was saying that college students have, this is extended into colleges where people are summarizing stuff through GPT. And this is, so the reading and the encoding is kind of reduced because the practice traditionally been done is not there. Well, those college students are tomorrow's teacher, literally tomorrow's teacher. So are we seeing this carrying over into not just on the student side of the classroom, but perhaps on the teacher side of the classroom?
Well,
go ahead.
now, I we can talk about that, but I really do want to stick to human, to the adolescent development or child development, because the adults have not, we haven't been in the cycle long enough for us to see that impact on what it's like for teachers or adults. It may be showing up now because we're like, wow, how do we, we saw the impact of the pandemic, but we're like, how did we get behind like this? So it may be showing up now as you commented on, but I don't think we have
the reason that I was asking is because you were saying that the first stage was watching for visual cues, and that's how you learn the skills that you are going to build upon in the second and third phases.
So
I remember
AI is relatively new concept, although it seems like it's not. If you remember, do you remember that huge, big, crazy telephone? And now we got Razor telephones, right? It seems like that was a lifetime, but that went very, very, very fast.
Very true, yeah.
AI and the infusion of AI and the integration of AI is still relatively new, but it's going to move like a whirlwind.
Very quickly.
It's going to move so fast. It's
Oh,
developing,
yeah.
it's developing even right now where I was shocked where they were trying to show us how to code to disaggregate our data. Like just put all of the interviews in the AI system and tell it what the cues that you want, and it will disaggregate that data. So, it was too complex for me, but I know that the younger generations are like, yeah, they're going to do that because it just makes life easier. So we got to remember that AI and algorithms is going to play a part in the way that our kids advance their learning. It is definitely a part.
What I've seen,
here's just a small question. Is it because we don't see our parents reading that we're not reading? I mean, the babies are not seeing the grown folks reading. I'm just bare bones, no background that you all have. If I see my big brother on the phone, I'm gonna want to get on the phone. If I see my parents on the phone, I'm gonna want to get on the phone. If I see my big brother reading, I'm gonna want to read. If I see, so that's kind of what I meant. That's why I was saying, is it a matter of affecting the adults, which naturally sets the tone for the kids, or is this, if it doesn't happen at this level, you're going to struggle regardless of what your example is going to be?
I think it's a multi-level situation. I don't think it's one particular cause of what's happening. I will say at the house, since we started at the house, right, with the pre-operational stages and the formal operation, not formal operation, pre-operational stages, concrete operational stages. I mean, sensory motor. So whatever the environment is doing, the child is going to do. Mm-hmm. But now the issue is you have the environment at home, plus you have this alternative environment that they are constantly exposed to. So I think what we're seeing a clash in what we used to do to teach, as opposed to this new way of learning and understanding. And so because of that, we're having to catch up with this artificial intelligence, right? And use it in a way that is going to be the most advantageous educational opportunities for kids. But what's happening is I'm going to go back to what Dr. Stevens said about the metacognition part. I think a lot of kids I get don't understand the importance of figuring things out, because they are given things in these bite-sized morsels that don't allow them to think past what that concrete situation is. Like, I found a lot of kids who can't, what we call conserve, right? They can't, it's difficult for them to move past what I'm seeing and being able to apply to that to which I don't see. So it's difficult for them to operate in formal operation because they've never really been taught how to think.
And so, so that is a sign that they were undeveloped during the preoccupational stage.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm seeing. So, and I'm talking about kids who, because I work in the alternative setting, but I see that with kids who are regular ed. I see that with kids who are in college. It is not that they can't think. It's just that they have not been taught how to think and process, because their duration, their capacity for learning is so short. So they like the short. Give me the Cliff Note version. Just tell me the skinny part. I'm like, no, because you have to know how to process what one part is and combine that with something else in order to provide what we call it, doc, synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of kids who can't get to the synthesis stage in learning because they haven't been able to navigate through the concrete portion of learning.
And we think that that's only related to reading, but no, that's why we have so many children failing algebra.
Yes,
because they didn't do the rote part of it. The rote part of it.
The what part of it?
The rote memory part of it. Do you remember? Do you remember Schoolhouse Rock?
Oh, of course I do. That's why I know the preamble to the Constitution.
Right. So they talk through mnemonics. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility. So we can cite the preamble, but they or do you remember the noun is a person, place, or thing, and then three. We got 3 in the family: 3, 6, 9, 12.
Yeah, you take 3 in the family. That's the magic number.
Right. So they taught us through mnemonics, and so we got the rote memory part of math before we went into the more complex levels of math. Which
are you saying rope? ROPE?
Rote.
Rote. Okay.
Where everybody knows the mnemonics, the song. The songs will. 30 days have September, April, May, and so all the West have 31. Those old-fashioned methods of learning were effective because they prepared the foundational part of your brain, like Mr. Grimes said, for the more complex stages, of thinking. And we, this is going to set us up for next week when we start talking about Bloom's taxonomy and the various levels. Like, you get the stage of just remembering, the next stage is understanding, the next stage is being able to apply, the next stage is being able to analyze, the next stage is being able to evaluate, the next stage is knowing so much that you can create. So, and that's going from just basic thinking all the way up to extreme critical thinking, right? And all of this is affected by those formative years defined by Piaget's stages. The four stages
Now I
that
got a question.
we
I got a
just
question. Does this have anything to do with the inability or lack of understanding as it relates to accountability?
I'm gonna let you take that one, Mr. Grimes.
Accountability in what regard? In response to the teaching part,
Okay,
or the
I have a student.
uh-huh.
Well, just different students, but a particular example I'm gonna try to use. I'm grading papers. It comes up 98% AI.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, look, only thing you wrote on this paper is your name and
the date.
okay, this is not, so I say, we're just going to give you a 0 on this assignment and we're going to keep it pushing. Because if I turn it in for plagiarism, you can either get a 0 in the class or you can get dismissed from the university.
Well, you know what they've started doing for college students have to do turn it in. They have to do turn it in. So they have to put those papers through, turn it in so that it could like you said, so you know that it's
I don't know that they do, because that's what I caught it on, was turn it in. So either she didn't, but this is the question. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just give you a 0 on this assignment because this is egregious. Okay. I see it, because turn it in tells you every website you took this stuff from. So it just is what it is. But I see you made a mistake, and perhaps you thought that that's how you were supposed to do it. I don't know why it was that bad. Plus, this is a student that doesn't come to class.
I mean, so
Blah 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 blah
that's
blah.
the get over student.
Well, no, because I haven't gotten to the question yet. So I said, this is what we're going to do, right? To help you out. I said, we're going to give you a 0 on this, but you do well on everything else, you'll be fine. Lesson learned, right? But she could not let that go, and she kept asking to retake it. Mm-hmm. And then when she could not get a response from me as fast as she wanted, she contacted the department.
Oh, wow.
So when she contacted the department, she did not contact the department saying, this is wrong, I'm mad. She said, I've been emailing Dr. Bolton and I can't get him. Can you have him contact me? Well, of course, the department's going to say, what does the student want? So now I got to tell him. So then I had to explain so then they tell me, no, if it's a situation like that, you have to turn it in if you're going to do something about it. So now I go back to the student and say, you remember when I told you, take this, charge it to the game. I've already thought it through. This is the least way you're going to get hurt. And I said, now, because you did that way, I have to turn it in. And then we go through a series of emails of begging as to, don't turn it in.
And that is a lesson in the psychosocial.
Yes.
That's not a cognitive. That's a psychosocial.
What is psychosocial?
That's human development. Like that's a human developmental lesson that she probably should have learned like in the adolescent stages, because in high school, they kind of teach you morals or values. And a part of Piaget's model talks about the development of morals and values. And so at age 0 to 15, you're supposed to get stronger in being able to assign doing the right things and values. So somewhere along the way, she was taught the get over strategy, and now she got stopped in her tracks. Where if she doesn't learn her lesson for this, she's gonna start running into brick walls.
I thought that, but then it became more common. I had a student that we're going to say this is a returning student at best, and she asked me, do you have a time in the semester where people can turn in assignments that they didn't turn in before?
Hmm.
No. What
Yeah,
we're preparing you
sometimes you have to
for
just
a
say no.
Yeah, you just got
But
yeah.
huh?
see, they don't know
Hmm?
these things that we're talking about. Eric Erickson, psychosocial stages, Jean
Yeah.
Piaget, cognitive development stages, mostly for adolescents. Rousseau goes
Mhm.
up to the higher ages. I'm trying to think of the man's name. I think it's Kohlberg that kind of picked up Piaget's moral portion. People don't know that. They just kind of think that life goes as it goes, but there are philosophers that have actually dissected information. And I was amazed. One night, of course, I was mindlessly strolling, and something came up called Smarty Me, and it was an app, right?
Mhm.
And it asked you to put in things that you wanted to learn. And I was blown away because I put in the keywords of, human development. It came up with almost every philosopher, right? And it gave you the opportunity to learn from those philosophies. And I put in 15-minute increments. And it literally
So
popped up almost every book that these people wrote. So trust me, we're going to learn a lot different in the
Mhm.
future. Like these kids, as they go through these stages, like we had to pick up a paper book. Do you remember
right.
Encyclopedia Britannica?
And
I
yes.
That's
forgot
how,
that.
that's how you
Which
did your
volume?
research paper, right? That is how you did it.
Internet.
Right.
The note cards.
It was not put it in Google or Google Scholar, and it wasn't that. If so,
So
you know,
as professional um, instructors, are you bouncing between the social cognitive? Well, no, that can't be right. The social dynamics or the cognitive learning levels, or is it all one thing? Are you bouncing back and forth?
Okay, yeah, well, you are bouncing back and forth. I think it's become more difficult for us to define the integrity of education or the integrity of learning. When I know what the importance of learning is, then that comes with a whole new set of laws and understanding that I think we miss. We're so information driven, we forget about the authenticity of knowledge.
mhm.
And so, because we don't know that, then guess what? That gets compromised over time. So I get college kids who come in thinking that they're going to do the same thing they did in junior high or middle school and high school. And it's like, no, that's why it's called higher learning, right? And so you constantly going back and forth with the integrity of learning and the information that needs to be learned. And that's just going to be a battle you have to establish at the beginning and make sure that goes through the end of the course. If not, you're constantly compromising what it is that's in the syllabus as
Mhm.
opposed to the work being turned in or that needs to be turned in.
Mhm.
Now, are you talking about this preoccupation with the right answer as opposed to understanding concepts and ideas? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think it's not just that. I think it's just the fact that there's a social component also that says, when I get to this particular level, I'm good. And I don't care how I get there.
Mm.
Oh yeah, and that's a choice.
That's
That
the
is,
truth. Exactly.
yeah, that's a person's choice of like how
What,
much.
what do you mean when they say they get to just an arbitrary level, or when I get to college, when I get a
Well,
degree?
I
What?
think it's all inclusive because it's steps, right? So they know if I don't pass this class, I can't get here. So I'm gonna do everything I can to pass this class.
Get to the next.
I don't care what I know, because I ain't gonna have to lower it when I graduate, right? That's what they think. Until
Okay.
they're confronted with
I'm
the fact
tracking
they
you
got
now.
to know something about this. They got to know something about what this class taught. And that goes back to the integrity. I think for me, and I had to explain this to kids that, well, why do I have to take art or why I have to take
Mhm.
like because they don't understand that your brain has a left and right hemisphere. And when you fuse those hemispheres together, that deepens the understanding of knowledge.
Even if they like, if you show them lessons of, I guess I'll use this example. So I had a specific class that had just migrated from Chicago. And so this is when people were coming over to Gary so it was a different, um, it's kind of a different value system. And
Mm-hmm.
you had to start there. You had to say, okay, you're in Rome now. Here's how the Romans do it. We're
Mm-hmm.
not, in Greece anymore. So this how I had to start with that. And so it was so hard getting them to do literature. It was just hard. So Lawrence Fishburne played Othello. And so, we had to do at least one Shakespeare book. And so, I introduced them to No Fear Shakespeare because that's really the only way that I was going to get them to get through a whole book. But we looked at Othello and the girls, the part where she was begging for her life. And first of all, when Iago was whispering those things in his ear and got him all thrown off, and defeated the Venetian, right? The girls picked that up. Now, these are girls like that probably wouldn't care about Shakespeare, wouldn't want to do. But when the Desdemona started like really begging for her life and trying to convince him that he was a good man, they were like, oh, and I was like, okay, they got it. So at that moment, you saw them like transition into listening and
Mm-hmm.
starting to decode Shakespeare's language and I was very, very impressed. I was impressed by
That was the question I was going to have. Isn't that more of the responsibility of the professor
yes.
than their ability to, because I have to make it meaningful. If I teach a class, I had horrible teachers growing up. Horrible. It's so bad, I
I
remembered the
do.
few who weren't. Yeah, I remember the few who weren't. And
Well, you
it,
came up in the
if you
Gary
go through a
Stevens,
class
right?
and you think, I just need the answers to pass this test, that's because it's not being made relevant in any way. So what I'm constantly trying to do, especially history, is generally thought of to be boring and have nothing to do with nothing. So I'm constantly showing them, you see Shays Rebellion, all of these people did this and they went to trial and everybody got let go. Look at January 6th. They did all of this. Everybody got let go. Look at Nat
No.
Turner's rebellion.
Oh,
Nat Turner's rebellion, same time period, different outcome. Black Lives Matter.
okay.
You
Now
know, it,
I
so
gotta reel you back in because we'll get off topic and we'll start. We can't
well,
help.
no. It's really consistent with what Mr. Grimes was saying, as to where he was saying that this culture has come about of kind of just give me the answer so I can get out of the classroom.
Right, and they
And
need
I'm
to learn the whole
saying,
story.
right, and I'm saying I think that culture
I
is
get it.
more due to the poor presentation of education as opposed
Absolutely.
to what
No, I would say
what
absolutely, as you made it interesting.
right. That's so yeah. I was really trying to get a clarification because that's why I was saying that I was asking a question about that culture of I have really no responsibility in this. And yeah, if I was 98% AI, I'm not getting the fact, okay, I need to just take this L and do it the way that I'm being told to do it. Or I'm just trying to get through this class, because that was a root of what happened with that AI incident, was just, I'm just trying to get out of this class. Where's the answer? What's the quickest way to do it? And I think had she
Probably didn't read
actually,
her own paper. She didn't read her own paper, probably.
and I really think if she would have come to class,
Yeah.
she would have found a different level of connection to the work. But the fact that she was combined with not coming to work, not coming to class. So that was where I was kind of going with it. But I'm not going to take us off topic. Go ahead and get us back on. That was just something I truly needed to know, like actively for tomorrow. So
No, you're right. I mean, it's how the it's the delivery of the professor in explaining constantly to the developing mind that almost everything is related. It's like it can be associated. You have to
Mhm.
find what it is. You have to learn,
How you made it Lawrence Fishburne and not this thick book.
right. And so
You
they
know what I mean? That's
drew them in.
that's that interruption in that
Uh-huh.
process of this is something that's never going to affect my world. And how many people even know that Othello? Now Othello was black, or was it Macbeth?
Othello.
Yeah.
Othello.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if I'm in the inner city and I see Shakespeare, I'm thinking, oh, well, this has nothing to do with me or my culture or nothing. Well, boom, we had Othello. Okay, well, this does have some connection with my culture because the main person, that's the professor going, you could have picked anyone. I would have picked Macbeth because that's my favorite. But you could have picked anyone, but knowing your audience, you thought beyond.
I picked, yeah, because he was in something, Deep Cover. It was some movie that he was just in.
Uh,
Um,
See
that
the
they
boys
could,
in the hood,
right, or Boys in the Hood. It was something he was just in, and so they could relate to that.
right?
But it introduced them to a new character,
Mm-hmm.
which was just as exciting, but that you had to decode the language. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say, remembering my high school days where we didn't have no fear of Shakespeare, I kind of didn't like Shakespeare. Like,
Mm-mm.
I don't think it's the best writing ever. I don't.
I did, we had to do Hamlet, King Lear, and I forget the other, but we had to like just kind of learn it the hard way. So when I saw No Fear Shakespeare as a teacher, I was excited. I'm like, oh shoot, because now guess what? I can understand it better, so I can teach you better. I don't have the confidence deficits. Like now, what did he mean? The slings and arrows of outrageous misfortune. Let me think. you know, you
You
know.
know what? It's like having a conversation with Michael Eric Dyson, bro. You don't have to give me. You don't have to give me $20 words to give me $5 worth of information.
Well, I think I
It's
think I think that's the beauty of education because things can be shaped and formed in such a way that you can reach a lot of different audiences in a lot of different ways, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that goes back, Dr. Stevens, what you talked about a week or so ago, understanding that using the Maslow's model, a lot of people always revert back to the survival mode because that's the basic primal part of the brain, which allows us to be safe. And this is where, doing brain coaching and whatnot allows me to understand that no matter what the situation is, people always go back to what is simple because they want to survive, because the brain says, I need to survive. The brain is average best at memorizing anything. Like, I don't care
Mm.
whose brain it is. It's average. So we have to learn and learn. The best learning comes through rote and repetition. The more we do over and over and over, and we scaffold over and over, and we scaffold, right?
Mhm.
So, but when our brain goes to what's called myelination, to where it starts to streamline and become more exact about a lot of things. That means that we don't have the same friendship circles anymore. We have these are my best friends, but these are my bestest friends, right? So, and then defining who we are as individuals also goes and plays a part. Now you got to think about all at the same time when you think about the cognitive development, um, as well as the social development of students, right? So when I get a kid in, I want to know exactly where this kid came from. What's his socioeconomic, level? How old is he? What grade is he in? Where is his cognition? Because I get a lot of kids who we call nine. We call them 17 and 9. They 17 years old. They in the ninth grade.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that means that's a lot of space.
Yeah, they've fallen behind.
Exactly right.
So
So
that goes back to that. Remember the
yeah,
stage 3 of Piaget.
yes, exactly right. Yes,
Preoccupation. You have that stage has to 7 to 8. I mean,
yes.
years 7 to 8. You have to focus on getting them to be
Yeah.
strong readers.
And
That
which means
very
that on the Maslow scale, they're always in that safe mode.
Yes,
If,
yes,
if I get them
sure.
in and let them sleep a little bit longer, and I give them a snack, or let them eat some breakfast, and they feel good, then I might be able to get something to them, right?
Or some more reading and some more.
Exactly right.
Course, your teaching atmosphere is a little different. I want to specify this for the audience because I know we're getting down to I think we have 3 minutes. But I want to specify this for usually when kids land in alternative situations, they have higher adverse childhood experiences, which
Yes.
has slowed them down on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that they've had some deficits in the physiological needs, some
Yep.
deficits in safety and security, some deficits in love and belonging, because a lot of them come from abusive situations, which ultimately affects their self-esteem, which
Yes.
will affect that cognitive development and the both the cognitive and the human development scale. So as an educator, you have to do extra things for them to
Yep.
fill in those gaps, like
Yes.
let them sleep, like give them snacks, like say, let me tell you something now, that respect thing, this is how it goes. I give you a coin, you give me a
Give
coin.
me one back.
We're all
Yes.
safe. You got to like really, because you're filling in you're filling in those developmental gaps on the preoccupational scale Piaget's occupational scale.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some things that we have to do. Now, parents at home, the main thing that you can do is create safe and secure, loving environment and opportunities to learn. That will give them the self-esteem to reach the self-actualization where they'll start doing this on their own. So
Yes.
after at the concrete stage, you just start building and scaffolding on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of like just have to make sure you got a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
What are
Okay.
we going to go? What will we be going over next week?
We're next week we're going to do the approval addiction and how, social media, if we're going to use it for human development, how as parents and adults we can set the tone for young people to be able to use it better, in terms of developing as a strong human and developing as a strong thinker.
Well, I look forward to that. I thank you guys, Dr. Stevens, Mr. Grimes.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I'm going to have some more questions because I don't know. And a lot of this stuff I'm asking is live time. So if I'm asking it, I'm not asking it to be a contrarian. I'm asking because it is alive in the university and I'm seeing it, and you all have seen it you all get to see it on a more mass scale. I get to see my classrooms where you
No.
guys are getting to see it
So
over multiple.
you're actually not the antagonist in this story.
You can be both though. It's okay.
Right.
All right. You guys have a good week. I will see you all next week.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the thought.
Yes, appreciate it.